What's good, everybody? It's the Clown with Cap Show. NFL Week 6. My Indianapolis Colts are playing again the Jacksonville Jaguars. I do think we are definitely underdogs, and I think we're going to lose this game. We're without Anthony Richardson 4 to 6 weeks with that shoulder injury. I just think looking at the Colts, yes, a lot of people are saying Gardner Minshew, he's the guy. You know, he comes in. He's a good backup quarterback. He throws the ball down the field. He's a great passer and all. But I'm telling you, to run deep this year, if the Colts going to make the playoffs, these are the type of games we have to win. In the division, same record. Both teams are 3-2 right now. This is a huge game for the Colts. But I do think right now, my heart is telling me, yes, Indianapolis. But my mind is telling me Jacksonville Jaguars. So I'm going to go Jacksonville at 4.5. It's in Jacksonville. I think without Anthony Richardson, that's the difference there. You know, Anthony Richardson is that it factor. He's young. He's a rookie. He can run and he can throw the ball down the field. But I just think in the pocket, that's what he needs to work on long term for Anthony Richardson, for the Indianapolis Colts. Just focus in the pocket. Don't worry about scrambling. Don't worry about other stuff. Just focus on reading coverages and staying in the pocket long term. And then Mo Alley-Cox, he's questionable for the Colts. But we do have Zach Moss, who snapped off last week and went crazy. He's got 3 touchdowns this year, 445 yards rushing. And then obviously JT's back. And I don't think they're going to give JT a lot of carries in the first month since he's been back. But I do think after a month in with Anthony Richardson, Jonathan Taylor, with him, it's just like, you know, we got to give him a couple weeks to get in form, you know, just to get that vibe, just to get that rhythm in. So I just think for JT, man, it's going to take some time. So Zach Moss will not be a bad scoop in fantasy football. I think that's really a smart choice to start Zach Moss because he's going to get a lot of touches just like JT is. So I can't wait for this matchup, but I'm going to go Jacksonville. I think Trevor Lawrence this year's really slept on. 5 touchdowns, 2 picks this year, over 1,200 yards passing. I mean, straight dog. He's got Christian Kirk. He's got a TD. He's got ETN. He's got 3 touchdowns, almost 400 yards rushing. So Jacksonville's a nice team, and I think Zay Jones is out for Jacksonville. I do think this is going to come down to the wire, but I definitely like Jacksonville at home with Trevor Lawrence. It just makes sense to me. You know, even though we do have Jonathan Taylor back, one of the best running backs in the NFL, I do think they're going to stack the box and say, hey, you know, we're going to let Minshew beat us. That's what Jacksonville's game plan is here. Just let Minshew beat us, and if he does, rightfully so, shout out to Minshew, but I don't think it's going to happen, so I'm going to take the 4.5. I'll take Jacksonville. 44.5 is the over-under. You know, that's tricky. It really is, just without, you know, Anthony Richardson, but I still like the over. I think it's going to go over 44.5. I really do. I think, you know, Trevor Lawrence in that offense is going to throw the ball down the field. They're going to go. They're going to score quickly, and I just think for the Colts right now, without Anthony Richardson, even though JT's back, yes, it's great, but this is a huge primetime game. I like Jacksonville in a close one over my Indianapolis Colts. And then we got the Detroit Lions versus the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. Both teams right now only have 1 loss, and the Bucs really surprised me this year, and I think they surprised the whole NFL. I did not think the Bucs would be 3-1. I thought they'd be 1-3, but really Baker Mayfield's proved to me that he is a nice quarterback in the NFL. With 882 yards passing, 7 tutties, and only 2 picks. Then you got Mike Evans with 3 touchdowns, 337 yards receiving for Mike Evans. So that's his go-to. Obviously, he's like 6'5", you know, a huge target, easy to throw to. So I think Baker Mayfield and the Bucs are going to look really nice against Detroit, even though, you know what, at the same time, I'm going to go Detroit Lions. They are 3-point favorites. They are the away team. Tampa Bay surprised me, both offense and defensively, but I'm still going with the better team and the better quarterback, and that's Jared Goff. I'd rather have Jared Goff than Baker Mayfield. And Goff this year over 1,200 yards passing with 9 touchdowns and only 3 picks. So Jared Goff, you know, his favorite target, St. Brown, he's back. He's got 2 touchdowns this year. David Montgomery, that run game is just going crazy this year. 6 tutties, 371 yards rushing. I mean, dude, the Lions, they're 4-1 this year, and they surprised a lot of people. And I think it started with week 1 in Kansas City, and they upset Kansas City without Travis Kelce in week 1. So this was the start of the season. So we look at the Detroit Lions and realize, wow, that week 1 was a huge win, and they only take 1 out of Seattle in an overtime game. So I think right now Detroit is one of the most slept-on teams in the NFL right now. I think they're a top 5 team, and I just think who they got right now on that roster, they're just playing hard, and they really have a chip on their shoulders. So the Detroit Lions 100% will make the playoffs this year, and I like them over the Bucs. 42.5 is the over-under. Probably lean more towards the over as well. Just simple fact that, you got Jared Goff here. They're going to score some touchdowns. They really are, man. I like that. I like that pick. I like the Detroit Lions, man. They're just a solid team right now. They're a top 5 team. Even though Tampa's a top 10 team as well, they surprised me, but I think this is going to come down to the trenches, and I think the run game for the Detroit Lions is going to be the difference maker in this matchup. So I'm going Detroit over the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. Let's go! And then we got the Baltimore Ravens versus the Tennessee Titans. This game's in London, overseas. The Ravens are 4.5-point favorites in this matchup, and I was thinking, man, I don't know. Tennessee Titans, and I thought, well, they do have Ryan Tannehill. He's a trash quarterback. He's got only 2 touchdowns this year and 5 picks. That tells you how Tennessee Titans season's going. They need to go quarterback here. And then you got Derrick Henry, 328 yards rushing and 2 tutties. DeAndre Hopkins, 26 receptions, 356 yards receiving. I mean, they need to throw it to him like almost every single play. DeAndre Hopkins, one of the best receivers in the league, so slept on as well. Like, he's always open. He stays open all the time like Walmart 24/7, man. So shout out to DeAndre Hopkins. But you know what? I'm going to go Baltimore. Even though Baltimore should have won last weekend, I think Baltimore, this is a bounce-back game. I'll take the 4.5. I think that, what owes them is the receivers. Mark Andrews, the tight end for the Ravens, owes Lamar for the drop touchdown. Zay Flowers dropped a couple passes last weekend in Pittsburgh. He owes Lamar, man. He really does, and Lamar can't do it all. And I feel bad for the Ravens right now because Lamar's single-handedly really just like carrying this team right now. That's what Lamar's doing. Over 1,000 yards passing, 4 tutties and 2 picks. He's got 265 yards rushing and 4 rushing touchdowns. So it's all Lamar, really. So I'm going to go the Ravens. Lamar's the X factor, obviously, here. I want to see OBJ get in that rhythm. I just wish that Lamar would have more pieces. Zay Flowers, a washed-up OBJ, just isn't enough for Lamar. It's just not, man. I want to see more pieces to be added for Lamar and Baltimore in the future. Obviously, this year, they got to work with what they got. But right now, Lamar, he's the only guy, really. So I'm going to go Lamar and the Ravens over the Tennessee Titans. 42.5 is the over-under. Probably lean more towards the under in this matchup in London, but I definitely like the Ravens and Lamar Jackson to win in London, take off Lamar. And then we got the Washington Commanders versus the Atlanta Falcons. Falcons are 2.5-point favorites here, which is rightfully so, but you know what? I'm going to go with the upset here. I'm going to go the Washington Commanders here. You got Sam Howell, who's really had a great season this year, 1,349 yards passing, 6 touchdowns and 6 picks. And then Brian Robinson Jr., 271 yards rushing and 3 touchdowns. They got Terry McLaurin. I'm telling you, Washington is a very slept-on team. The only downside is coaching-wise. They were playing a couple weeks ago where I didn't like some of the calls by the coach. I don't know if they're going to move forward with that or not. But I just think Washington with the upset here makes sense to me. I mean, yes, Desmond Ridder over 1,000 yards passing, 4 touchdowns and 3 picks. You got Kyle Pitts over 200 yards receiving. You got Drake London over 200 yards receiving and 2 touchdowns. Robinson has 2 receiving touchdowns. So Atlanta is nice. I mean, it would make sense to go Atlanta, but something in my gut's telling me Sam Howell's going to have a career game this game, and they're going to win by a game-winning field goal here. Even though Young Who hit the game-winning field goal last weekend, I think it's going to reverse here, and I like the Washington Commanders with the upset in Atlanta. I know it might be a long shot, but this is one of my upset alert games. 42.5 is the over-under. That's tricky. That's a coin flip, 50-50. But I definitely like Washington over Atlanta in a close one. I can't wait for this matchup. And then we got the Seattle Seahawks versus the Cincinnati Bengals. One of the best matchups all weekend. Absolutely. Seattle's 3-1 this year, and the Bengals are 2-3. Right now, the Bengals need to go on a run here. This is the game that the Bengals need to win right here. They don't want to go 2-4 in the first 6 games, only winning 2 games. That's not enough. They need to win this game. This is a playoff game for the Cincinnati Bengals. Like, obviously, the Seattle Seahawks can afford to take an L, but Seattle's really nice this year. Geno Smith, 5 tutties, a pick. Kenneth Walker, 283 yards rushing and 5 touchdowns on my fantasy squad. Shout out to Kenneth Walker. Tyler Lockett on my other fantasy team, 157 yards receiving and 2 tutties. Then you got DK Metcalf, 2 tutties, over 260 yards receiving. So I think Seattle, man, they are a nice team. And Geno Smith really surprised me the past couple years where I'm just like, wow, that's not the Geno Smith that I used to know. The Geno Smith now is making smart decisions, reading coverages, and throwing the ball out of bounds when he needs to do it instead of forcing a bad throw and a bad interception. So shout out to Geno Smith, man. He's really caught on. And Joe Burrow, over 1,000 yards passing, 5 tutties and 3 picks. You got Jamar Chase, his boy, 476 yards receiving and 3 tutties. T. Higgins is still questionable with that rib injury. But right now, if you're the Cincinnati Bengals, this is a must-win game here. It really is. But, part of me, even though the Bengals are 3-point favorites and it makes sense, this is a high risk for them. But right now, I'm going to go Seattle. And I think the difference is the run game for Seattle with Kenneth Walker. Kenneth Walker utilizing the play action with Geno Smith is going to open it up down the field. And I think Seattle steals this game here in Cincy. I really do. I think Cincinnati right now, the chemistry's not on. They're just not the same team this year. They're not. T. Higgins is out. It's just been really inconsistent. Joe Burrow's not 100%. So it's just like, I'm making 100 excuses for the Cincinnati Bengals to lose this game. And that's one of them. It's just they're too inconsistent right now. And the Seattle Seahawks and Pete Carroll, they're going to come up with a game plan. And I think if Cincinnati Bengals defense stops Kenneth Walker in that rushing game, I think they're going to win this game. But if they can't, and Kenneth Walker's going to rush for over 100 yards, mark my words, Seattle's going to win in Cincinnati. I can't wait for this matchup, man. This is going to be iconic. But I like the Seattle Seahawks with the upset over the Cincinnati Bengals. Even though more's at stake for the Bengals, but Seattle is just a better team right now. And then we got the Carolina Panthers versus the Miami Dolphins. Carolina's 0-5 winless. Battle between 2 former Alabama quarterbacks, Bryce Young and Tua, which is insane, right? For Bryce Young, he's not a bust. He's a rookie. He's young. I just think, the Carolina Panthers need to develop more people for Bryce Young. They just have to. 5 touchdowns, 4 picks. And then you got Adam Thielen. He's been in the league about 10 years now. 3 tutties, 394 yards receiving. Miles Sanders a touchdown. But the Panthers, they're 0-5 for a reason, and their defense sucks as well. It doesn't help them. So obviously, I'm going to go Miami. The safer bet is money line, but Miami at 14 is not a bad play either. You got Tua, even though Devin A-Chain is out for about 4 to 6 weeks with that knee injury. That's huge. I picked up A-Chain off both of my fantasy leagues, and he's been snapping off. So he's going to be out for at least a month, which kind of sucks, really, even though their bye week falls in week 10, which is perfect for them. So hopefully A-Chain will be back by week 11 and week 12, at least before the playoffs hit in fantasy football. So I can't wait for that. So shout out to A-Chain. He will get healthy. And then you got Tyreek Hill, the number 1 receiver in fantasy right now. 651 yards receiving and 5 tutties. Just straight crazy, man. I mean, if you have Tua and Tyreek, that's just unfair. Even though I do have Tua, got him in the 9th round, which was a steal. I mean, Tua's been snapping off over 1,600 yards passing, 11 touchdowns and 5 picks. Even though a couple of those picks were just unnecessary. Tua knows it. Even last weekend, he threw a pick 6. He knows it. But overall, I'm going Miami here. Miami's probably one of the best offensive teams in the NFL. Them and the 49ers in Philly. So I think Miami right now, they're fast. And I'm telling you, A-Chain will be back. I can't wait. Tua's going to snap off 30-plus this week. Tyree's going for 30-plus. That is huge. I'm definitely taking the Miami Dolphins. 47.5 is the over-under. That's tricky. That is really tricky because, Carolina doesn't score a lot of points. So it's just like, even though, Miami puts up crazy points, I still got to go the over. Every time Miami's playing, got to go the over, man. I'm telling you, because Tua's just been going crazy this year in fantasy. And Tyreek Hill, take off Miami Dolphins. I like them to beat the trash Carolina Panthers. And then we got the Minnesota Vikings versus the Chicago Bears, a classic matchup. Both teams are 4-1. Both teams are trash. It really does. It sucks. I mean, Minnesota should win this game. And I'm going to go Minnesota, even though the Bears right now had a great performance last weekend. I believe it was on Thursday night or maybe Monday night. But Justin Fields, he's been doing his thing. 11 touchdowns, 5 picks. I don't think the Chicago Bears should trade Justin Fields. I think they should keep him and just build around him. He's got talent there. DJ Moore, 531 yards receiving and 5 tutties. been snapping off. But for Kirk Cousins, great stats, almost 1,500 yards passing, 13 touchdowns, and 4 picks, but yet you guys only have one game. You only won one game this year. I don't know how, and what to go on top of that is Justin Jefferson's placed on the IR. He's going to be out for at least a month and a half, 2 months with a hamstring injury. It just sucks for Minnesota. Opens it up for a Jordan Addison, who I got in my fantasy league late from USC. He's been snapping off this year, 249 yards receiving and 3 touchdowns. You got KJ Osborne, 2 touchdowns. And look for TJ Hawkinson to snap off with 2 touchdowns this weekend. Without Justin Jefferson, those 3 guys are going to get a lot more targets this week. So definitely start them in fantasy football. But right now, Minnesota is just, they're kind of, a dead horse right now. But I'm still going to go Minnesota. I don't believe in the Chicago Bears defense. So I'm going to go Minnesota Vikings. I'm going to go Kirk Cousins and Minnesota barely. But I just think right now, Minnesota is just, I don't know, understand them. They have a trash defense as well, just like the Chicago Bears. Both teams are trash, but, this is going to be a battle between 2 trash teams. But I like Minnesota in a close one over the Chicago Bears. But I wouldn't be surprised if Chicago wins. I really want it. But at the same time, I'm going Minnesota over the Bears. And then we got the San Francisco 49ers versus the Cleveland Browns. San Francisco's 9.5. I think it started at like 4.5, like last week before, everything came out. But at the same time, Deshaun Watson, he's expected to be out with the right rotator cuff contusion, which sucks for Brown fans. I mean, you guys are going to get blown out. I definitely like San Francisco. They're the hottest team in the NFL. Them and Philadelphia are the only undefeated teams left. And we look at Brock Purdy. Last pick in the NFL draft a year ago, 1,271 yards passing with 9 touchdowns, 0 picks. Been playing great. You had the best running back in the league in Christian McCaffrey, 510 yards rushing and 7 touchdowns. You got Debo, 302 yards receiving and a touchdown off 84 yards rushing. You got Kittle, who snapped off last weekend for me, 3 touchdowns. It's just San Francisco, man. They're a stacked team right now. And they remember last year losing to Philly. Brock Purdy got hurt. A lot of things happened. So I think San Francisco right now is clearly the best eye test team in the NFL. You have so many great players on San Francisco, and they have a great defense. They're sound. They got Wagner. I'm telling you right now, San Francisco 49ers are going to run through the Browns. Without Deshaun Watson, even though Jerome Ford, he's a solid running back, 1 touchdown this year for Cleveland. That would, wouldn't be terrible to start him, but at the same time, you're going against San Francisco. And you got Amari Cooper, 259 yards receiving and a touchdown. Hopefully he snaps off this game, but I still like San Francisco. I definitely like McCaffrey to get another touchdown. Anytime touchdown for McCaffrey's a great bet every single week. He scored since the last year of December. So, there's a reason McCaffrey's the best in the league. There's a reason he's the highest paid running back in the NFL. McCaffrey is a dog. He's a savage. So, I definitely like San Francisco 49ers over the trash Cleveland Browns. 36 is the over-under. But definitely, they're telling us it's probably going to be the under, which is crazy. But I definitely like to go with the over. I think San Francisco is going to put up 30-plus points in Cleveland. It's going to be a blowout. But I like San Francisco over the Cleveland Browns. And then we got the New Orleans Saints versus the Houston Texans. The Saints are 2-point favorites. I think, honestly, this is the hardest matchup all weekend for me. This is such a coin flip game. Why? Because of C.J. Stroud. He's been playing great this year. No picks. He's got 7 touchdowns, almost 1,500 yards passing as a rookie. Second overall pick, man. He's looked so good this year. And then you got Nico Collins, 467 yards receiving and 3 touchdowns. His go-to guy. But the downside is for the Texans this week, Tank Bell and Robert Woods are both questionables. They're both star receivers for Houston. So if they're going to be out, I'm definitely going to go the New Orleans Saints. I think Derek Carr this year has been slept on. 946 yards passing, 4 touchdowns and 2 picks. And then you got Alvin Kamara, 131 yards rushing and a touchdown. Chris Olave, 318 yards receiving and a touchdown. So I think, the Saints are a nice team this year. They're very slept on with Derek Carr. I can't believe the Raiders traded Derek Carr to New Orleans. It was crazy to me. It really is. But I'm going to go Saints. I think the Houston Texans are missing a couple pieces for C.J. Stroud. I think this game's going to be close. I definitely go with the over at 42.5. Lately, I've been going with the overs a lot lately, and they've been hitting. But I like the Saints here. I think Derek Carr and Kamara being back in that starting lineup is an X factor here for the Saints. So I'm going to go Saints in a close one in Houston, even though this game's going to be the hardest one to choose from all weekend. And then we got the New England Patriots versus the Las Vegas Raiders. The Raiders are 3-point favorites. I'm going to go Raiders at home. It just makes sense to me. Coach Bill Belichick's still going to have Mac Jones start, which it doesn't make sense to me. You guys are one of the worst offensive teams in the league, and yet you're still going to keep Mac Jones in there? Doesn't make sense. Mac Jones is trash. He sucks, man. 5 tutties and 6 picks is just not enough. Kendrick Bourne, 218 yards receiving and 2 touchdowns for the Patriots. But overall, I'm going to go Raiders here. I just think Jimmy G, he's a solid quarterback at best. 7 interceptions, 6 touchdowns. Then you got Josh Jacobs, 235 yards rushing and 2 tutties. Devontae Adams, 442 yards receiving and 3 touchdowns. I just think Jimmy G needs to show more love to Devontae Adams. I just think the Monday night game against Green Bay, he was open every time. Just throw the ball to Devontae Adams, one of the top receivers in the NFL. There's no reason why you shouldn't be throwing to Devontae Adams, dude. He's one of the best. So I'm going Raiders here. I just think the Patriots are trash. 41.5 is the over-under. I'll probably go with the under in this game just because of the Patriots, man. I mean, you got Mac Jones. He's just trash, dude. He's trash. Just trash. That's all he is trash. So I'm going to go the Raiders over the New England Patriots. And then we got the Arizona Cardinals versus the LA Rams. Arizona's 1-4. The Rams are 2-3. And really, this is a huge game for both teams. Definitely for the Rams. This is a must-win game for the Rams. They're 7-point favorites playing at home, and I'm going Rams here. I think Matthew Stafford, 5 touchdowns, 5 picks, almost 1,500 yards passing. Then you got Puka and Kupp, who's been going crazy. Kupp over 100 receiving yards last game, his first game back, and then Puka's been snapping off. 572 yards receiving and 2 touchdowns. I mean, no one picked him up in fantasy. They picked him off waivers. I know it. Puka came out of nowhere. He's been balling out. So I definitely like the Rams and Puka to take off. Kyron Williams, 5 touchdowns this year. Good running back. But I'm going Rams over the Arizona Cardinals. Arizona, even though Josh Dobbs playing really solid as a quarterback, 6 touchdowns, 2 picks, 980 yards receiving. But overall, you got James Conner as well. He's a great running back. 364 yards rushing and 2 touchdowns. But overall, I'm going the Rams here. I think, Matt Stafford, he's the difference here. Him and Cooper Kupp and Puka, I think they're going to snap off and just go crazy. So I like the Rams over the trash Arizona Cardinals. 48.5 is the over-under. Probably lean more towards the under, barely. But I definitely like the Rams at home in a must-win game over the Arizona Cardinals. And then we got the Philadelphia Eagles versus the New York Jets. Philly 6.5-point favorites here, which makes sense to me. I'm obviously going to go Philly. And recently, Philly hasn't looked so great, but yet they're still winning games. That's all that matters if they continue to win games. And it starts with Jalen Hurts, over 1,200 yards passing, 6 touchdowns and 4 picks. You got DeAndre Swift, 434 yards receiving and 2 touchdowns. A.J. Brown been going crazy, 541 yards receiving and 2 touchdowns. Devontae Smith, 290 receiving yards this year and 2 touchdowns. I mean, Philly's just been going crazy. Even though Jalen Carter is out with an ankle injury, that D lineman they got from Georgia, arguably the number 1 overall pick that they scooped up, I think, 9th overall, which was crazy. But for the Jets-wise, if you end up winning this game, that'd be huge, obviously, but I don't think it's going to happen. Even though Breece Hall looked great last weekend, he's got 387 yards rushing and a touchdown. Garrett Wilson, 2 touchdowns this year, 279 yards receiving. Ohio State boy. But I think Zach Wilson, he is getting better. He is, but, the Jets aren't going to make the playoffs this year. It was just a heartbreaking, 4 plays in. Aaron Rodgers in week 1, torn Achilles. Ever since then, the Jets just been deflated. All that air's been out of the balloon for months now. For weeks, ever since Aaron Rodgers, so at least a month. But Zach Wilson, I do expect him to have a show-out game, but I still like the Philly. I do. I just like Jalen Hurts, and I think A.J. Brown's going to snap off this game, so I'm going Philly. I'll take the 6 points all day over the New York Jets. 41.5 is the over-under. That's tricky. I don't even know. I'll probably lean more towards the under, but I definitely like Philadelphia over the New York Jets in a relatively close one, but I'll still take the 6.5. I'll take Philly over the Jets. And then we got the New York Giants versus the Buffalo Bills. Bills are 15-point favorites. Obviously, I'm going to go Bills here. Daniel Jones is out with a neck injury. Saquon Barkley most likely will miss yet another week with an ankle injury. So I'm going to go Bills here. Josh Allen over 1,400 yards passing, 11 touchdowns and 5 picks. And then he's got his boy Stephon Diggs, 520 yards receiving and 5 tutties. Just crazy. I mean, the Bills are nice. Even though they're 3-2, they need to get back in the win column. The Bills need to be the top dog in the playoffs here. They need to be top seed, a first-round bye. That's what the Bills are playing for right here, and this is a game where they start to get on a win streak here, on a heater. So I'm going Bills over the trash New York Giants. They're just done, dude. Daniel Jones is trash. Saquon Barkley, I wish he was playing, but he probably won't. Even if he does, I'm still going Bills. Bills all day. I'll take the 15 points at home in Buffalo. 44 is the over-under. Probably more towards the under because the Giants don't score points. So I definitely go the Bills in that Sunday night football game. And then we got the Monday night football game, one of the best matchups all weekend. The LA Chargers versus the Dallas Cowgirls. You know, in LA, the Cowboys, man, they're ranked 16th in NFL in total offense. So that tells you what you need to know about Dak Prescott and the Dallas Cowboys offense. It's just trash right now. And I'm looking at Dak, and everybody wants to give sympathy to Dak, but at the same time, it's just like, Dak's just not that guy. Dak is Tony Romo 2.0, like I've said 100 times, and that's who he is. That's just who he is. He's not a Super Bowl winning quarterback. And as long as you're going to have Dak Prescott in the starting lineup, you guys aren't going to win the Super Bowl. You're just not, Dallas. I'm sorry. That's just the reality check for you guys. You have CeeDee Lamb, who's a baller, who just doesn't get a lot of love either. It's just like, that don't make sense. He's their go-to guy on offense. Tony Pollard's a good back, 340 yards rushing and 2 tutties. But it's just not the same. I think Dak Prescott needs his target, CeeDee Lamb, a lot more. That's how you're going to get a better offense. But overall, it's just the Dallas organization as a whole. It's just they're the Notre Dame of the NFL. You know, they get a lot of hype, you know, in the season. My Notre Dame Fighting Irish, every single year, it's our year. Then we always lose the big game. That's the Dallas Cowboys. They always lose the big game. They really do. So I'm going to go Chargers here at home. I'm going LA. I think Justin Herbert, this is a star time to show out here, to say I'm better than Dak. 1,106 yards passing, 7 tutties and 1 pick. And then Keenan Allen, who's been snapping off for me in fantasy, 434 yards receiving and 3 tutties. And I think Austin Eckler is to return. He's their X factor here. If Austin Eckler's playing, I'm definitely going Chargers here. He's that running back that could get you 30, 40 points a game in fantasy, dude. He could get you receiving yards. He could get you rushing yards. He could do it all. So I think Eckler's definitely an X factor here. I'm not sold on the Cowboys, dude. They're the same every year, man. They get a lot of hype and, oh, this is what the Cowboys are going to do. But no, they're not, dude. They're just not. So I'm going LA Chargers over the Dallas Cowboys. This is going to be a close matchup on Monday Night Football, but I'm still going Chargers. I like the over. 51 is the over-under. I'll go with the over, but I definitely like the Chargers over the Dallas Cowboys. What a week 6 for the NFL. Some of my lock picks, I'm going to go out on a limb and go the Chargers over the Cowboys. That's a lock pick. And I like Philly over the Jets. That's my another lock pick. And then another lock pick is San Francisco over the Browns. You know, that's an easy lock pick. So those are my 3 lock picks all weekend. So it's going to be interesting. A lot of 50-50 coin flips. You got Seattle, Cincinnati. That's tough. You Ravens, Titans, you know, Lions, Bucks. Those are all tough games. And like I said, my Indianapolis Colts are going into Jacksonville. I want to see an upset game, but I don't think it's going to happen. So I'm going Jacksonville. I can't wait, man. Even though I do want to see my Colts win, it's just the reality of it. It's the NFL. It's the Clown with Cow show. Let's go!